Welcome back, YouTube friends. It's me, Logan Albright, back with another book review for your viewing pleasure. And today's book is the 2001 classic Life of Pi, written by Jan Martel and winner of the Man Booker Prize. Look at that. Look how fancy it is. And also major motion picture. So quite a celebrated book. I hear a lot of good things about this, and I have heard a lot of good things about it for many years. But for some reason, I resisted reading it, and I finally did read it. So let's talk about it and see what I thought. I think a big part of understanding this book has to do with kind of the frame at which you approach it and your expectations. It's been so hyped up and it's been so talked about as like a spiritual classic or a philosophical classic that I think it really depends kind of what your expectations are going in, how much you're going to enjoy it. I liked it. I thought it was a good book. I enjoyed reading it. I got through it pretty quickly, but I don't think it really lives up to all of the hype surrounding it and all the things people say about it. So I want to talk about that a little bit. But first, let's just talk about what the plot is. The plot involves a young Indian boy named Piscine who goes by Pi, and him and his family are immigrating from India to Canada, and while they're crossing the ocean, the ship sinks. He ends up in a lifeboat with a live adult Bengal tiger and has to survive until he can get to land. So on the surface level, it is sort of a story of mid-ocean survival, which is right up my alley. I love that sort of thing. It reminded me a little bit of like Kon-Tiki or one of those type of books, Sailing Alone Around the World, which is not fiction, but it's an awesome book. You should read it. I love stories of survival at sea. I think they're great. So that part of the book I really thought was a lot of fun and enjoyed it. And having the tiger there made it all the more interesting and dynamic than just someone alone on a boat with their own thoughts. Now, the added complication to this is that the narrator is very spiritually minded, and before he gets to the boat part, there's a whole section about his kind of journey through spirituality, and he wants to be simultaneously a Hindu, a Muslim, and a Christian, and that causes problems in his community, but he doesn't see what the problem is. He just wants to love God and have all these different faiths at the same time, which he doesn't see as contradictory. So that's kind of the setup for it. And then the ending, which I won't spoil for you guys, no spoilers here, but is a little bit controversial and a little bit puzzling. And I think the ending is where the entire point of the book really comes in. So my first critique of the book involves the pacing of it. Like I said, I love the middle chunk where it's survival at sea, but I think it took too long to get there. The whole first 100 pages is all about his life in India and his journey through spirituality. And while I am interested in that stuff in general, I wanted to get to the sea part. And, I felt a little bit like watching Weekend at Bernie's. The only reason you watch Weekend at Bernie's is to see the hilarious, pranks with Bernie being dead and trying to convince people that he's alive. And that's why you're there. That's the only purpose of watching Weekend at Bernie's. But Weekend at Bernie's has like 45 minutes of setup while the two main characters try to get to Bernie's and explain who Bernie is and talk about their love lives and all these ridiculous, irrelevant things. Cut all that out, get right to Bernie's. And that's how I felt about this book. Like, I don't need to know about your life as a vegetarian in India. I want to see you on the boat surviving. That's why I'm here. Get that done for me. So I had a problem with that. The second thing I'll say is that I feel like people have oversold. Maybe this isn't the fault of the author. This is the fault of the critics. But people have oversold kind of the depth of this book. People have been acting like it's this great, spiritual revelation to read it. And I just don't think it is. And my theory about this, and this is going to be controversial, is that this is the kind of deep spiritual book for people who have never read a deep spiritual book before. I like to liken it to the band Sigur Rós from Iceland. I know tons of people who love that band and think they're amazing and think they're the greatest thing ever, highly experimental and unique and wonderful and different and unlike anything else. And I've never got it. I don't see what the big deal is about Sigur Rós. They're okay. And I think the reason is that people are exposed to this sort of thing for the first time. Sigur Rós has a mainstream following that more experimental older artists don't have. And so when people encounter them for the first time, it feels unique to them and they think it's something special, when really if you've been into experimental music for 30 years, it doesn't seem that special. And I feel like the same thing about Life of Pi. If you have never read a kind of philosophical book before, all the books you've read have been, Oprah Book Club or like this kind of stuff you buy at an airport or the kind of stuff you buy in a grocery store checkout line. Yeah, this is probably going to seem really deep to you. But if you've, spent your life reading more interesting books, older books, more difficult books, it doesn't seem that deep. And I realize this is coming across as very pretentious and elitist, and I apologize for that, but that's just how I feel reading it. It just didn't seem like that big of a deal to me. Like, it's got some stuff to think about in there, but it's nothing new. It's nothing I haven't had before. So I don't know. I just think it was oversold in terms of depth. It's a good yarn. It's a good read, but oversold in terms of depth. And then the final thing I really want to get to about it is what I think is the point of the book, what I think the author is asking us to buy into, which maybe this might be a little bit of a spoiler. So if you're worried about that, you should turn off now. But I don't think it's that much of a spoiler. I think the main point of the book, according to the author, is that the objective truth doesn't really matter. What matters is your interpretation of the world and you telling yourself the story that helps you get through life best, or that is most meaningful to you, or that has the best, makes you feel the best. And, you know, he's got a point. He's right that there's two different things. There's objective reality and there's the way we interface with and experience and interpret objective reality. And those are two different things. But I think he's saying that, you know, the objective truth is less important than our own understanding of meaning and our own interpretation that works for us in our particular circumstances. And this is an argument that I've heard someone like Jordan Peterson make. He got into a famously long and frustrating discussion with Sam Harris about the nature of truth. And Sam Harris was saying, well, the objective truth matters. And Jordan Peterson was saying, well, as long as something is true enough to be beneficial to your survival, that's what really matters. And I got to side. I like both of those thinkers a lot, actually. I'm interested in what they both have to say. But I fundamentally side with Sam Harris on this because I think the objective truth does really matter. And it may be difficult to discover, and it may, you know, not be comfortable and not be beneficial to know it, but I think it is important for its own sake. And I am very wary of people who try to dismiss and discount the importance of objective truth. I think we've gotten into a lot of trouble with this kind of postmodern thinking that nothing is really true, everything's a social construct. I think that's a really bad way of thinking about the world that leads to some very bad consequences. So I am very resistant to that line of argument, which I think is basically what the author is getting at here. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's not what the author's getting at here, so feel free to comment below if you disagree with me on this and we can talk about it. But my interpretation of the book, particularly the ending of the book, is that life is a story, and what the story is isn't really that important. As long, you know, what the real story is isn't that important. It's important that the story you tell yourself is what you need at any given point in time to get through life. And I guess I just fundamentally disagree with that. So I had a hard time with the book from that point of view. I do kind of enjoy that the ending is ambiguous a little bit. I kind of like ambiguous endings because you're able to kind of impose your own views on it. Maybe this is contradicting what I just said, where you're imposing your own view and not worrying about what the real truth is. But I kind of do like that ambiguity where the reader is able to kind of think about how he interprets the book or how she interprets the book and find their own meaning in it. But overall, I just think I disagree with the message of the book. And even though I love a lot of the action of the book and a lot of the narrative, I think it's well written. I think it's gripping. I think it's a page turner. I didn't really buy into the philosophy of the book. So maybe that's why I had a hard time with it. But definitely glad I read it. It's something I put off reading for a long time, and now I know more about it and can speak about it. So that's pretty cool. If you want to read it, if you have read it, please give me a note in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and see if I'm way off base here or if you agree with me. And then, as always, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll keep making more videos like this as fast as I can read books, guys. I'm reading some thick ones right now, so it's hard for me to get them done fast enough to do videos on them. But I'm working on it. I'm trying to keep content up for you because I know it's important. All right? Cool. So, Life of Pi, 3 stars. I'll be back next time. Thanks so much for watching. I've been Logan Albright, and I'll catch you next time.